Double Trouble in Walla Walla by Andrew Clements. It was an ordinary Monday morning in Walla Walla until Lulu raised her hand in class. Mrs. Bell, I feel like a nitwit. My homework is all higgledy-piggledy. Last night it was in tip-top shape, but now it's a big mishmash. Mrs. Bell said, "Nitwit, higgledy-piggledy, mishmash. Lulu, stop that flip-flop chitter-chatter or you'll be in double trouble." Lulu said, "But I'm not trying to flip-flop chit-chat. I just have an itty-bitty problem with my homework." Mrs. Bell scowled. "All right for you, Lulu. If you're going to shilly-shally and dilly-dally with all this fancy-schmancy yik-yak, then we're going to have to trot down to the principal's office." Mrs. Bell hurried Lulu down the hall and they burst into the principal's office. And all the kids were saying, "Hee hee hee, my, yak yak, blah blah, looky looky, shh, shh." And Mrs. Bell says to Lulu, Come. Mr. Thomas said, "What's all the hubbub about?" Mrs. Bell said, "Lulu's been trying to razzle-dazzle me with some kind of lippity-loppity jibber-dabber, and now I'm all helter-skelter myself." Mr. Thomas raised his eyebrows. "Tut, tut. Sounds like silly-willy hocus-pocus to me." Mrs. Bell's mouth dropped open. She pointed to the principal and said, "Eka freaka! Lulu's got your tongue all topsy-turvy too." Now, don't get the jim-jams, Mrs. Bell. Let's give the nurse a yoo-hoo." Mr. Thomas picked up his phone and said, "Mrs. Carter, I'm going to pitter-patter over to your office. Okie dokie?" All three went across the hall to the nurse's office. Mr. Thomas said, "Howdy doody, Mrs. Carter. We're a little wacko. Lulu's got us talking this sing-song claptrap like we're cuckoo." Mrs. Carter smiled at Lulu and said, "Fiddle-faddle. Lulu and I are palsy-wowsy. She wouldn't try that kind of phony-baloney tutti-frutti flim-flam." Lulu and her teacher and the principal stared at the nurse. Lulu said, "Wowsy zowie." Mrs. Bell said, "Jeepers creepers." And Mr. Thomas said, "Holy moly, you're in the same hodgepodge as we are. I'd better give the superintendent a jingle-jangle, chop-chop." One ding-dang tick-tock," shouted the nurse. "If you chit-chat with the bigwig, then he'll yak-yak like Lulu too. If we're not very, very hush-hush about this, there could be a mongo brain drain, and everybody in Walla Walla will be talking like a herky-jerky ding-a-ling." Then the nurse turned to Lulu. "Lulu, let's get to the nitty-gritty. When did all this mumbo-jumbo start?" Lulu gulped. She said, "In English class, I had an itsy-bitsy problem with my homework, and then, zip-zap, Mrs. Bell started talking like this was a no-no." The nurse looked over the top of her glasses at Lulu. Something like this would not just happen willy-nilly. "Now, Lulu, think extra hard and tell me what you did yesterday." "Well," said Lulu, "it was really a humdrum day. I was practicing ballet in my tutu when my little brother Bobo asked me to play on the teeter-totter. We seesawed until Bobo slipped off and got a boo-boo and started to boo-hoo. Mama and Papa came running pell-mell, so I went inside and splish-splashed in the rub-a-dub tub and then hip-hopped into my cuddly-wuddly Betty. I said night-night to Mama and Papa and Bobo and fell asleep in a snip-snap. That's all I did, honest." Mrs. Carter said, "Lulu, it seems to me you've opened up a knock'em-sock'em wibble-wobble word-wop. I usually don't believe in this kind of hoodoo bunko junko, But if it was going to happen anywhere, it would probably happen right here in Walla Walla. Mrs. Bell said, "Let's not quibble-quabble, Mrs. Carter. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies from all this razzmatazz. What can we do?" "We should say all the rootin'-tootin', crinkum-crankum, woolly-bully words we can think of. Maybe that will clear the air and close the warp. Worth a try?" asked Nurse Carter. Mr. Thomas said, "Aye, aye." Mrs. Bell said, "Let's do-si-do," and Lulu said, "Uh-huh." Nurse Carter closed the door to her office. Then she turned around and said, "Lulu, let's get this harum-scarum show on the road." Lulu stood right up and blurted out, "Ticky-tacky knick-knack, coochie-coochie-coo, hubba-hubba, Roger-Dodger, ooey-gooey-goo." Mrs. Carter cleared her throat and said, "Hugger-mugger hobnob, pitta-patta bon-bon, wishy-washy squishy-squash, handy-dandy mishmash." Mr. Thomas closed his eyes and started slowly but picked up speed. "Eensy-beensy, choo-choo, teeny-tiny, hurdy-gurdy, roly-poly, ragtag, hurly-burly, riff-raff, rumble-tumble, hip-hop, teeny-weeny, pop-top, namby-pamby, hippy-dippy, hoity-toity, hotshot." And then Mrs. Bell stood up and took a deep breath. "Put-put, vroom-vroom, honk-honk, zoom-zoom, zig-zag, clank-clank, slam-a-bam, fender-bender, ringy-dingy, cling-clang, ring-a-ding, boing-boing, ring-a-ling, zing-zing, bing-bang-boom, never-never, wigwam, turkey-lurkey, tom-tom, tootsie-wootsy, tittle-tattle, tee-hee-hee." And then without warning, words flooded the air. Fuzzy-wuzzy, fuddy-duddy, loosey-goosey, lovey-dovey, kissy-kissy, huggy-huggy, rink-a-dink-doo, ga-ga, rah-rah, go-go, so-so, frou-frou, goo-goo, poo-poo, woo-hoo, rinky-dinky, arf-arf, argy-bargy, woof-woof, boogie-woogie, bow-wow, super-duper, pooper-scooper, clippity-cloppity, hippity-hoppity, clickety-clackety, rickety-rackety, blah, 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 ba, 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 ha, 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 clip-clop, drip-drop, click-clack, rick-rack, eager beaver, lucky-ducky, comfy-dumpy, fat cat, hee-haw, tweeter, tweet-tweet, chirp-chirp, cheep-cheep, cluck-cluck, quack-quack, yuck-yuck-yuck. Ah, my goodness. Bozo, yo-yo, heyday, mayday, hokey-pokey, hanky-panky, goody-goody, yum-yum, yummy-yummy, tum-tum, gimme-gimme, gobble-gobble, jelly-belly, dum-dum, voodoo, boob-tube, moo-moo, poo-poo, clang-clang, yin-yang, ching-ching, wing-ding, pow-wow, cow-tow, peg-leg, jet-set, Georgie-porgy, hunka-munka, henny-penny, Humpty-Dumpty. And then, suddenly, silence. Lulu, Mrs. Bell, and Mr. Thomas slumped into chairs, and Mrs. Carter flopped down the cot against the wall. Was it over? No one dared speak. Lulu whispered, "Mrs. Carter, may I please have a drink of water?" Mrs. Carter sat up and said, "Of course you may, dear." Mrs. Bell smiled weakly at the principal and said, "You were magnificent, sir." Mr. Thomas perked up and smiled at everyone. He straightened his tie and said, "I think we've done it, people." Mrs. Carter sat down at her desk and went back to checking over her posture records. Mr. Thomas walked across the hall to his office and went back to the letter he was writing. Lulu followed Mrs. Bell down the hallway and soon had her English homework all straightened out. And after English, it was just an ordinary Monday in Walla Walla. Goodbye, Mrs. Ding Dong. Ta-ta, Lulu. The end.